Welcome to the Tapestry. I am Dr. Francois Booker Drew, and I'm so excited to be with you once again to share stories of amazing women that I think you need to know. This show is really about weaving the stories into this beautiful fabric that allows us to understand the power of our narratives and how our words make such a difference in building the stories and identities of who we are. And so today I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Shaylon Scott. And she is a native East Texan with a burning desire to make an impact in the world. She has effectively blended a career in the nonprofit and for-profit sectors while raising 2 children as a single parent. She has a Bachelors of Science in Criminal Justice from Wiley College, and she has an educational background in PR and communications from UT Arlington. She has experience in working with HUD and so many different agencies. Her resume is phenomenal, and currently she serves as a regional director of North Texas for On the Road Lending. And she talks to groups all over this area about how this program can really change the lives of particularly women. And she is also working with the Dallas Social Venture Partners Impact Investment Pitch Competition, where she won in 2018. She's the newly elected president of Collin County Social Services Association, which is in North Texas, and she continues to use her platform to elevate the needs of the community and the nonprofit sector as a whole. She just launched a new business venture called Book Mecca, which is an online Black bookstore and a platform for Black literature and authors. And so I want to welcome you to the show, Shaylon. Thank you for saying yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk to you. You are my friend in my head and friend in real life, for sure.
Well, I want people to know your amazing story because you're the first person in your family to go to college. How did that happen, and what made you say that was important for you to do?
Oh, yes, yes. College was never really a dream of mine. I was just kind of going through the motions in high school until I came across a high school teacher, an English teacher, who really loved my writing. He loved the things that I was doing, and he encouraged me to look into college. And when I did, I went out to my counselors there at the school, and I'm from a small little town, and they were more interested in making sure that the football students went to college than anyone else. And so the first thing they mentioned was, you don't have enough money to go. If you're going to go, you're going to have to figure it out. And so myself and one of my closest friends there, we did the research. We had binders full of colleges. We had binders full of potential scholarships. And we had everything laid out on a calendar until we wrote letters. We applied for everything we could until our senior year. We found out everything was paid for. We graduated the top 10% of our class and had scholarships enough to pay for everything except room and board. So I was so thrilled that all of that hard work from sophomore year to senior year paid off.
Wow. And so being the first going to college, what was that experience like? Because it sounds like you didn't have a lot of people around you who could really give you insight. So how were you able to navigate in the midst of that?
Yes. My father is a very religious man, and he wanted me to go into full-time ministry. So he was not very supportive of me going to college. In his mind, he was saying, if you're going to go to college, you're going to have to figure it out. And so when I was able to do that, he said, okay, go ahead and do that, but where are you going to live? How are you going to figure it out? And the first college I applied for was UT Arlington, and I got in. And so I knew I had family members in the area there. My mother's side is from Fort Worth, Stop Six. So the family is from right there in the region. So I reached out to uncles and aunts that I may not have been as close to as when I was younger, just to see if they would give me the opportunity to stay there. If I paid a little bit, if I helped out, if I did whatever I could so I could go to school and I wouldn't have to really struggle as much. So I had family that opened their doors to me.
Well, and it sounds like, which is a common thread throughout your life, that relationships have been very key and critical to your success. And so you've been able to go into a number of career moves. And how were you able to do that? Talk a bit about how you've been able to connect those careers, but also the role that relationships have played in your success.
Absolutely. I was one of my first classes I took in college. It was phonetics of all things. And the teacher there said, no matter what you're talking about, no matter where you go, everyone is connected with a common thread, period. And make sure that your relationships stay intact. So I kind of took that with me for everything that I did. From my very first job, I knew it would be a nonprofit or something close to it. I wanted to give back. I wanted to help people. So I tried to make sure that every role that I took, I learned from. I kept relationships with some of the people that were in my life when I worked there. So even from my first job, I still have contacts with them, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook. And you really come to find out the more you get involved, especially in nonprofit, you run across people over and over again. You never lose connections. So it's so important that you find a way that you can speak to them authentically, and it's really genuine, especially the more you know about a person, the more likely they are to help you and vice versa.
So how do you avoid burning bridges, though? Because one of the things that I don't think young people recognize, and as we get older, we get the wisdom about this, that sometimes even when relationships don't work out, that we don't burn bridges with people, because as you mentioned, you may end up in these social circles with people over and over again. How have you been able to have this amazing network and keep relationships, even though I'm sure that you've had some that have been challenging?
hmm I'm one of those kind of people who are always looking for relationships that continue on. So not everyone is here for the entirety of your career. Some people are here for a specific project, they have a specific motive, and that's okay. I will meet them where they are. I will be within their circle as long as they allow me to be. And when that time is up, I'm okay to move on. So when it comes to burning bridges with different ones, it's always a matter of what exactly happened. Is it something on my part? Is it ego? Is it pride? Or is it simply the scenario that we were placed in? Oftentimes, it has nothing to do with you personally. It has everything to do with the project or the situation that you're in. And so I always look at it that way, that even though whatever we were doing together didn't work out, you're still an okay person. I still like XYZ about you. So I make sure that that is always at the top of my mind.
Well, and you've said two things that are really important, I think, for people to pay attention to. Folks are in your life for reasons and their seasons. And
hmm
so there are certain relationships that you will have that will be long-term relationships, and there are others that they're not, and that they've served, a reason and had a purpose for your life. And I think it's important as women that we're able to identify that and be okay with knowing that some of our relationships just aren't going to be there forever. That's one. But the other thing that you brought up that I think is important to take note of is, in relationships, it's not always about you. You don't have to take things personally and think that the problem is about you. The problem may be about a behavior or a situation at hand, but you can't take things personal, because if you do that all the time, then you're missing the real opportunity that could create change and really help you improve.
So true. We often hold people to expectations that are only in our heads. And
Yes.
can't do that. And so we have
Yes.
to really meet people where they are and say, if you're only able to give me 20%, then I'll accept your 20%. And I won't ask you for more than you can give.
And see, the thing that's so cool about that you recognize that, I remember hearing Bishop Jakes talk about that, he's like this 100-gallon container, and that his wife is like, I'll just throw out a number like 20 gallons. And so I'm paraphrasing so folks don't write and call. But he made this comment about, if he were to pour all of who he is into his wife, he could overwhelm her, and recognizing that even her 20 and pouring that into him may not be, everything that he may need. But he has learned how to not do anything outside of that, but he's learned how to not expect her to be able to do all of that because she's doing her best. And I think quite often we place these unrealistic expectations on people. And to your point, it's saying that I recognize that your 20 may be my 100, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have to meet you where you are. And so one of the things that you've had to go through in your life is a very difficult situation. You had to go through a divorce,
Yes.
a relationship that was very painful. So how were you able to rebuild your life from a really damaging and devastating situation?
Yeah, that was, I, to date, it's one of the hardest moments I've had to get through. Dealing with divorce is painful in itself, but dealing with divorce that is also malicious, spiteful, is one more thing added to it, to where everything that you've worked for, whether it's your home, whether it's your car, everything in your bank account is taken away from you, and you are starting over with nothing. And that is where I started. That
Hmm.
right there is what led me to really take a look at myself. I am one who always wants to give, who always wants to help, but rarely asks for help. And so at that moment, when I had nothing but $50 in my bank account, I had nothing but my kids, and I had to find somewhere to live. I had to find a way to get from Frisco to Dallas to keep my job. I had to figure out all these things and keep my sanity as well as the kids through all of this as well. At the same time, I had to understand that I had to ask someone else for help. I had to ask anyone else for help. And so I started to write out a list of the things that I needed to take care of. I needed a car. I needed a home. I needed to make sure that we are mentally taken care of. So I am a big supporter of nonprofits, so I know there's a program for everything. So that was the first thing that I did, was look up programs for therapy, counseling. I made sure the kids were in counseling throughout the entire ordeal. I had no money. It was free. It was paid for. I got myself into counseling because I cannot help the kids get through anything that's traumatic if I'm messed up as well. I made sure that I had that. The next thing I worked on was making sure we were stable enough to stay where we were. And if not, what was my next plans? So I started reaching out to Facebook mom groups and nonprofits in the area, and anyone who would really smile at me. I asked them questions about services and programs, and anything you could think of, I got back 100-fold. I had a young lady on Facebook group. She didn't know me from anything. She was a realtor, and she knew I was moving and trying to find somewhere to go. And so she decided to become my realtor, and she advocated on my behalf with an apartment literally across the street from where my home was. So the kids didn't have to change schools. Nothing in their life changed except their father being in the home. That was it. She negotiated the rates for me. I mean, just the more I opened up and exposed and was really transparent with the things that I needed and that I was sincerely asking for help, not just simply for a hand up, but just a way to stabilize my life so I can get back to where I need to be and start over. And after that, I think I'm a lot more together than I've ever been in my entire life. I have a stable home. My kids are in school. They're 14 and 15 now in high school. We keep going to counseling. That is so important. And I
Mm-hmm.
have a job. I am doing well. And it all started with just simply opening my mouth and saying, okay, this is what I need, and being specific with what I need. Not just simply saying I have help, but saying I need X, I need Y, I need Z.
And see, that's coming from a place of humility to be able to do that, because I think for a lot of people, pride gets in the way And I think especially for women, we're so accustomed